Penn State is ready for a political revolution. Great turnout, and thank you all very much for being here. And let me thank Jacob Michael Ryan, Lauren Smith, and Sophia McLennan. Thank you so much for being here. I don't want you to tell anybody this. Keep it. But Secretary Clinton is getting a little bit nervous. Because we have won 7 out of the last 8 caucuses and because when we began this campaign, we were 60 points behind, and in the last couple of weeks, a few national polls have actually had us in the lead. She's getting nervous because Democratic voters know that in virtually every national matchup general election poll, we beat Donald Trump by wider numbers than she does. The American people are catching on that if we are going to prevent Trump or some other Republican from occupying the White House, which would be a disaster for our country, we have got the campaign to make sure that that does not happen. This is the campaign that has the energy, that has the enthusiasm, and that in November will create the kind of voter turnout that will not only allow us to retain the White House, but will regain the U.S. Senate, will do better in the House. No, there is, as we speak, right this moment, there is a Democratic primary taking place in New York State. Now, the polls don't close there until 9 p.m., so we don't know who is going to be winning or losing, but you know what? We're going to do a lot better, I think, than people thought we would. That they are giving us today. But I do want to say something. One of the themes of this campaign in Pennsylvania and every state that we have been to is the need to reinvigorate American democracy. Right now in America, we have one of the lowest voter turnout rates of any major country on earth. And I want us to change that. I want to see more of our people in the political process, regardless of their views. And in that regard, I would hope that in future primary elections in New York State, the officials there make some fundamental changes about how they do business. If you can believe this, in New York State today, about 27% of the eligible voters in that state are unable to participate in the Democratic or Republican primaries because they have chosen to list themselves as independents. That's wrong. Almost 3 million people in that state cannot vote today, and that has got to change in future elections. It is absurd that in Brooklyn, New York, where I was born, tens of thousands of people, as I understand it, have been purged from the voting rolls. Crazy that in upstate New York, they opened the polls at 12 noon. What happens to people who get up early in the morning and have to go to work? And yet, despite all of that, despite the fact that Secretary Clinton has won elections there twice for the U.S. Senate, despite the fact that she beat then-Senator Obama in 2008 in the primary there by 17 points, despite the fact that virtually the entire New York political Democratic establishment is standing with her, you know what? We're going to do just fine tonight in New York. As well as we will, is because we're doing something pretty radical in contemporary American politics. We are telling the truth. That Walmart is the largest private sector employer in this country, and the wages they pay their workers are so low that many of their employees are forced to go on food stamps or Medicaid. Who pays for those food stamps and Medicaid for Walmart employees? You do. That's what a rigged economy is about. You are subsidizing the wealthiest family in America. That is absurd. Get off of welfare, start paying your employees a living wage. When we talk about the economy, it is not just a very unfortunate and grotesque distribution of wealth. It has everything to do with income. Now, for the young people here, let me tell you something. You probably won't believe it, but Google it after you leave. Not now. Wait a few minutes. Check this one out. 40 years ago, before all of the technology and all of the robotics and all of the cell phones and all of the global economy, guess what? 40 years ago, one person in a family, in those days, most often a man, could work 40 hours a week and bring in enough income to take care of the whole family. Now, I know you don't believe me, but it's true. Today, after an explosion of worker productivity, an explosion of technology in almost all families. Mom is working, dad's working, and the kids are working, and they have less disposable income than the one earner did 40 years ago. And in fact, let me give you some news that together we are going to have to address. All right, young people, you ready for this? All right, buckle up, because we're going to change it. But if we don't transform this economy, the young generation of today, for the first time in the modern history of America, will have a lower standard of living than your parents. In other words, unless we turn around this economy, which together we are looking at the end of the American dream, and we will not allow that to happen. Listening to ordinary Americans, not just wealthy campaign contributors. And what working people are telling me from one end of this country to the other is they can't make it on $89 an hour. We need to raise the minimum wage. And that living wage is $15. It is not a radical idea to suggest that if you work 40 hours a week in this country, you should not live in poverty. A great nation is judged not by how many millionaires and billionaires it has, not by how many nuclear weapons it has, but by how it treats the weakest and most vulnerable amongst us. Right here in Pennsylvania, and in Vermont, and across this country, we have millions of seniors, disabled veterans, and people with disabilities who are struggling to get by on $11,000, $12,000 a year Social Security. And you know what? You can't get by on $11,000, $12,000 a year Social Security. Now, Republicans, their response to this crisis in many respects is to say, okay, let's cut Social Security. Well, I got some bad news from our Republican colleagues. We're not going to cut Social Security. We're going to expand Social Security. This campaign is listening to women. And women are telling me they are sick and tired of going to work and finding out they're making 79 cents on the dollar. Women of this country want the whole damn dollar in their life. And get that education. But then young people come up to me and they say, we did what people told us to do. Now we have $30,000, $50,000, $70,000 in debt. And the question is, why are we punishing millions of young people for doing exactly what we asked them to do? status quo. Go beyond where media wants you to go and what our options are. You all know that if this country is to succeed in the future with a strong economy, we all need to have the best education possible. Is that right? Education is inherent in who we are as human beings. We should be educating ourselves to the day we die. It is literally insane to be punishing millions of people to saying to them, you're going to be paying off your student debt for decades because you got education. Woman in my own state of Vermont, her dream was to go to medical school. She did. $300,000 in debt. We desperately need more dentists in this country. Woman, Iowa graduates dental school, $400,000 in debt. 55 years of age, he's been paying off his student debt for 25 years. He's more in debt today than he was when he took out the damn debt. That is not only unfair to the individuals, it is absurd when we talk about the future of our economy. That is why I believe when we talk about public education today, it is not good enough to just talk about free public education, meaning first grade through 12th grade. The world has changed, the economy has changed, people need more education now than they did 30, 50 years ago. When we think about public education today, we've got to be thinking about making public colleges and universities tuition free. And with millions of people being crushed by high levels of student debt, we have got to reduce that debt significantly. To refinance their loans at the lowest interest rates they can find. Now, very often in this campaign, I'm being criticized for thinking too big. Bernie, you're Santa Claus, you're giving away free tuition. You're going to lower student debt, you're a nice guy, how are you going to pay for all this stuff? All right, I want you to think about a couple of things. Number one, in the last 30 years, there has been a massive transfer of wealth in this country from the middle class to the top 0.1%. Trillions of dollars gone from the hands of working families to the very wealthiest people in this country. Second of all, back in 2008, 2009, this country bailed out Wall Street after their illegal behavior helped destroy our economy. I believe that now is the time to impose a tax on Wall Street speculation. If we can bail out Wall Street, now it is Wall Street's time to help the middle class. And if we do that, we're going to bring in more than enough money to make public college and universities tuition free and lower student debt. This country became a country. When the first settlers came here, the Native American people were lied to, they were cheated, and treaties negotiated were broken. We as a people owe the Native American community more than we can ever repay. Some of the best aspects of our culture come from the Native American people. They have taught us, among other things, that as human beings, we are part of nature.
Yeah!
That we have got to live with nature, not destroy it. Despite all they have given us, if you go to reservations in this country or Native American communities, you see terrible, terrible poverty, unemployment, suicide rate among teenagers, horrific. If elected president, we will change our government's relationship with the Native Americans. Senate Committee on the Environment. And in that respect, I have met with scientists all over our country, scientists all over the world, and here is the simple truth. Climate change is real. Climate change is caused by human activity. Our country and much of the world. And here is the other truth, a scary truth, but a truth nonetheless. And that is what the scientists are telling us is that we have a very short window of opportunity to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency. Yeah! In my view, we have a moral responsibility to make certain that the planet we leave our kids and future generations is a planet that is healthy and happy. They're too busy getting ads from the insurance companies and the drug companies. So let me tell you what you may not see on TV. And that is, we are the only major country on earth that does not guarantee health care to all people as a right. They do it in the UK, they do it in France, Germany, Scandinavia, Holland. I live 50 miles away from the Canadian border. They do it in Canada. Now, right now, as a result of the gains of the Affordable Care Act, we have made some progress. We got 17 million Americans who now have health insurance, who previously did not. We've done away with pre-existing conditions. Many young people are now able to be on their parents' insurance plans. All of that is good, but it is not good enough. Today, 29 million people have no health insurance. Even more, including many here tonight, are underinsured with high deductibles and co-payments. And every person here is getting ripped off by the drug companies who charge us the highest prices. We end up spending much more per capita on health care than do the people of any other major country. In my view, and this is thinking outside of the box, but it's envisaging a new America. In my view, we need to pass a Medicare for all single-payer program. Where every person has health care as a right. Think of an America where you can quit your job and go out and start your own business and not worry about having health insurance. And if you're a small business person, you don't have to worry. about how you're going to provide health insurance to your employees because they will already have health insurance. Everybody here understands that what American history has been about is the understanding that real change never takes place from the top on down, always from the bottom on up. That is the history of America. Think back, 100+ years ago. Workers in this country forced to work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, children working in factories, people could be fired arbitrarily, they had no rights on the job. And workers stood up and they said, we are not beasts of burden, we're not animals, we are human beings. We want dignity, we're going to form trade unions and negotiate contracts. Years ago, within the abomination of slavery, African Americans and their allies said, we will struggle for as long as it takes to end racism and segregation and bigotry in the United States. In America not based on racism. Think about 100 years ago, not a long time from an historical perspective. 100 years ago today, women did not have the right to vote, could not get the education they wanted, could not do the work they wanted. But women stood up. Ain't good enough. It's unacceptable. And women and their male allies said that in America, women will not be second-class citizens. And on it goes. That's how change takes place. Think about this. If we were in this room 10 years ago, which is no time at all from an historical perspective. 10 years ago, somebody here jumps up and says, you know, Bernie, I think that gay marriage will be made legal in this country in 50 states by the year 2015. Do you know what the person next to her would have said? Would have said, you're crazy. You're thinking too big. It can't happen. But what happened is the gay community and they made the claim that became impossible to argue against. And that is that people have a right to love each other regardless of their gender. That is how change takes place, always takes place, when people stand up and reject the status quo and come together. Give you one more example. 5 years ago. If we were in this room 5 years ago and somebody jumps up and says, Bernie, you know, this $7.25 an hour minimum wage, it's an outrage. People can't live on it. We got to raise that minimum wage to $15 an hour. Person next to him would have said, $15 an hour? You want more than double the minimum wage? You're nuts. You're thinking too big. You're too radical. Maybe $8, maybe $10. You can't go to $15 an hour. But you know what happened? Workers in the fast food industry, in McDonald's and Burger King and Wendy's, they went out on strike. around 7.25 an hour. And then you know what happened? A couple of years ago in Seattle, Washington, they passed a $15 an hour minimum. And then in Los Angeles, San Francisco, Oregon, California, New York State. The major crisis we face are not the crises themselves. It is the belief told us every single day by the establishment, by the media, by Congress, you can't make change. This is the status quo, this is the way it is, and this is the way it always will be. Doesn't matter what you believe. And that is what this campaign is challenging. When people look around them and say, oh, what is going on? This is just not acceptable. And that is what's happening in America today. People all over this country are beginning to see that the grotesque level of income and wealth inequality, where almost all new income and wealth is going to the top 1%, unacceptable. People are beginning to see that it is absurd that we are the only major country on earth not to provide paid family and medical leave. People are asking, how come every other major country on earth can somehow provide health care to all of their people, but we can't do it? Unacceptable. People are asking, how does it happen? Why does it happen that our infrastructure continues to crumble? Why does it happen that we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth? Why do we have a corrupt campaign finance system that allows billionaires to buy elections? Why do we have more people in jail than any other country on earth? Why are kids graduating school $30,000, $50,000 in debt? Those are the questions that people are beginning to ask. And as soon as they ask those questions, they quickly realize that establishment politics and establishment economics are not going to solve those problems. A simple truth, and that is that no president, not Bernie Sanders or anybody else, can solve these crises alone. We need millions of people, including many people who have given up on the political process, who have turned away from the process in disgust. We need them back into the system to reclaim American democracy. Say, excuse me, the decisions you are making now are going to impact me and my kids for the next many, many decades. You better listen to what we have to say. So what this political revolution is about is the understanding is that no president, not Bernie Sanders or anybody else, can do it alone. The only way we go forward and rebuild America and create the economy that works for all of us, the environment that works for all of us, is when millions of people stand up and say loudly and clearly, enough is enough. If we all understand that our strength is in our diversity, and if we demand a government that represents all of us and not just the 1%, when we stand together, there is nothing that we cannot accomplish. Next Tuesday, here in Pennsylvania, there will be an enormously important Democratic primary. What I have learned so far from this campaign is when voter turnout is high, we win. When voter turnout is low, we lose. So next Tuesday, let us have the highest voter turnout in Pennsylvania history. Tell the world you are going to lead this country into a political